So before we get into anything, you grew up here. You're a native of Clinton. This is a place that you know well.
Yeah, born and raised. Graduated high school here, as you well know, in 2003, because you did so as well. But yeah, a lifelong resident. Aside from going off to school, and right after law school, I lived in Jackson when we first moved back. But for the most part, I never really lived anywhere else.
So kind of coming out of law school, I mean, I always joke that I had the plan to go to law school and that never happened, but you actually did it. We both were at Ole Miss at the same time, and you ended up going to law school. And then I'm sure that there are those options like medical school or whatever else to figure out where you're going, what your specialty's going to be. And you ended up kind of doing some government work, government entities. How did you get into this line of government law?
Yeah, so just out of law school, I went to work for a law firm called Purdie and Metz. My uncle actually owned it with another guy, Jim Metz, in Ridgeland. And they did a lot of different government work, a lot of stuff for IHL, the Highway Department, MDOT. And then also my primary client, I worked on both of those, but then my primary client while I was there was Division of Medicaid. And so did that on the sort of outside counsel for them for a number of years, 3 or 4 years, and then they asked me to come in-house with the Division of Medicaid, so I went over there and did that for several years before coming over here to Clinton.
So that shift going from private practice to working with the Division of Medicaid, what did you see kind of coming inside where the sausage is made with kind of the government side?
Sure, it's just obviously the private sector is much different than government, whether it be state government or municipal government. There's just a whole different set of rules you operate by with whereby be budgets, purchasing, anything of that nature. But I think it was a pretty natural transition because I was doing the bulk of their legal work, in the private role. So moving over was pretty smooth and natural transition. I think it certainly prepared me for this role because Medicaid work, sort of like municipal law work, is pretty hyper niche, and unless unless you do it, you don't probably know a whole lot about it. So it's sort of similar in that. Municipal work, if you haven't had a lot of experience doing its own set of rules, its own sort of small subset within the law. So it's a little bit of overlap there. So I think it kind of helped prepared. And then just like I say, learn how to operate sort of within a governmental entity, from a legal standpoint. It certainly helped prepare me for that as well.
So coming into, you said, municipal law being very niche and you jumping into it, you kind of had a double entry trial by fire a little bit with being the city attorney and the city judge. Yeah. What all did you learn specifically about the job, specifically about the expectations, and then also specifically about Clinton itself?
Being city attorney, I guess I'll start with that. So I did that much longer. In Clinton, we do it a little bit different. Some places do it this way, but most cities, it's contracted out to a private law firm, and they handle the city's legal work. And so in that scenario, you get it tends to be more of sort of an arm's length relationship. I don't mean that it's a bad relationship. It's just they're not here on a day-to-day basis, and you're really just strictly handling the legal work. In some cities, and most of the larger cities, are moving towards an in-house model. So I'm actually in-house with the city. This is my only client. I'm a city employee. This is the only place I work. So I'm here every day. Department heads are in and out all day long. So while you're handling the legal work, you're really touching so many other aspects of it. I think, certainly to say I'm not foolish enough to say I'm prepared to take over as mayor, but I think this job has afforded me the ability to be prepared as maybe I can be. And then with city judge, it's just it was a great honor to get to do that. I've always wanted to get some experience on the judging side of thing. I will say I was ready to give it back when I got done. I resigned from that to run for mayor. You have to resign as a sitting. You can't run for elected office as a sitting judge. But it was certainly an interesting experience. It requires, I think, to do it well, a lot of empathy, obviously a lot of knowledge about the laws and stuff. But it's certainly it's one of those things when people see you, at least in your professional capacity, typically they're not having, they're not there for something fun at least.
Right.
And even if it's not something really, really bad, even if it's just a speeding ticket, nobody likes that. It's not enjoyable. So, try to, it helps you learn, I like to think I already did this, but certainly it reinforces it to treat everyone with respect. You don't know what's going on when they get in front of you, and typically that will make those situations go a lot smoother. But certainly at going to the grocery store and Walmart as the sitting judge is always can be a little awkward sometimes, but it wasn't too bad on that front.
Yeah, there's every once in a while hey mama, there's that man, that guy. So you've got a pretty nice setup. You've done some really good work here as a city attorney, transitioning into the 20s, which we laugh about. Every time I think about the 20s as a literature person, it's the Roaring 20s.
Right,
well, here we are in the
100 years
2020s.
ago, sure.
But so there's always time for a change. There's always time for growth and a new challenge. What made you want to put your name on the list to be the mayor here in the city of Clinton?
Well, I think sort of a couple of things that we've already talked about, me, being from Clinton, so certainly have those personal ties and community ties here. I've always been interested in politics. I always sort of conceptually knew that I wanted to get into politics someday. Then, sort of couple that with the city attorney job opening up here when it did, and me being fortunate enough to get that, and the mayor and the board hiring me for that, allowed me to get sort of a very unique experience and skill set.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think when you couple those two things, it makes me uniquely qualified to serve as the mayor of Clinton, which is certainly would be a tremendous honor, and I'm tremendously humbled by it. When you think about your hometown, you really want to do a good job. Not that there wouldn't be a lot of pressure otherwise, but certainly it feels like that much more. But I'm looking forward to it. Like I say, I think that my ties. I tell folks through this process, local government, it's often said is the level of government closest to the people. And
Absolutely.
That's, absolutely true. It's most directly responsible for, these decisions that most directly affect your roads, your quality of life, your safety, so it couldn't be more important. And as an aside, please get out and vote, because so a lot of folks would be astounded by how few people actually vote in municipal elections. And I was thankful to see we had a really good turnout in the recent Ward 3 election.
Yeah, the Ward 3 election had an excellent turnout.
I was very happy to see that. But, against the level of government that is making these just tremendously important decisions for these local populations, you really want to elect people that have the ties to the community and the knowledge to address those issues. And to your question as to why I chose to throw my hat in the ring, I felt like I was able to bring something to the table that will hopefully allow me to do a good job and sort of improve the lives of people in Clinton.
I agree. What we always talk, especially in my house, we talk 1, 3, 5 year plans. So the next 4 years it's very much clearly going to be a designated, delineated process. What kind of goals do you have kind of moving forward? What would you like to see? What politics, they always talk about the first 100 days and then kind of the long-term plans and goals. What plans and goals fit within that early time frame and then long-term as well?
Well, I think that we have some economic development projects that are, in the short term that are close to really sort of coming out of the ground and starting to really look like something. And I think shepherding those across the finish line is a big short-term goal. Specifically, you look at the Rising Spring development at MC, which is a $200+ million development that we're really excited about. We think that's the type of development that has the potential to not just draw people either locally or even from the metro, but travelers on I-20 between Birmingham and Shreveport or Louisiana.
Yeah, and then I always often say too that I'm hoping that project also draws more businesses to say it can work here.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And from the long-term standpoint, the goals, again, it's a thing that is sort of in its infancy, but getting off the ground now is the Clinton Raymond Bolton wastewater project, which is, I know people may get tired of hearing about that, but I'm excited to be as excited as you can be about a sewer project. Believe me, I'm more excited than you would think you could be, because I really do think that project has the potential to be transformative. Just what it brings and the amount of development it I think is going to open up.
Yeah, I tell a lot of people, when they ask about the wastewater project, why do we need it? And, I say, well, we've got a Continental. We couldn't get another because we need that kind of going there. So kind of to wrap things up, my time here in Clinton, I was born here and I lived here most of my life. We moved away for a bit and we moved back in 1993. So myself, from 1993 until now, I have known two mayors. I've known Rosemary Altman and Phil Fisher. So you will be the third mayor of this town that I've known. They've done wonderful things. They've had hiccups and hurdles like everybody will do. But in your mind, what will success look like for Mayor Will Purdie?
Sure. To your point, yeah. I mean, we're lucky that we've had, I think, really strong leadership for really all of our lives, and I think it has put us in a really good spot to take that next step to grow. And I think we can probably define success, in a number of ways. I mean, I think there's a lot of different growth avenues that I would view as successful. But I think one I would single out, because look, to take that next step and do all these things to grow as a city and bring these attractions. I mean, at the end of the day, the cold hard reality is it takes money, and really the easiest and most efficient and best way to raise money in the city is economic development. And I think economic development on a large scale, industrial type economic development. So one way, I would define success for me personally during my tenure is to really position the city to take advantage and be involved in whatever that next wave is. I mean, I think we're kind of on the very front side of this AI data center wave, and certainly something still to look at, and I think that is far from crested as a wave. So certainly there, or some associated technology, or maybe it's the next thing. But those types of, when you start talking about $1 billion, $10 billion developments, those are the type of economic developments that have the capacity to change a city's fortunes overnight. I mean, when you're talking about just increasing your budget by tremendous amounts, and that's what's going to really allow you to do some of these things that allow you to differentiate yourself and provide the sort of services and amenities that really our citizens deserve, and we look forward to getting for them. Go back to the wastewater project I was talking to a minute ago. I mean, I'll touch on that a little more. One of the reasons I'm so excited about that, I mean, it's 19 miles between here and Vicksburg, so each way, on the interstate, of virtually undeveloped land. I mean, no development there because you can't right now. So this will not only open that up for development in and of itself. We've got the ports in Vicksburg, John Bell Williams, the airport in Raymond, which is undergoing a large expansion, rail here in Clinton. We've got a strong trucking industry here in Clinton with Gulf Relay. It's just a really interesting set of ingredients. And then you add, I don't know, the number I heard was something like $80 million, but at the Amazon facility, they spent some gargantuan amount of money to actually route wastewater from their existing infrastructure through the plants, because they use it for cooling, and a lot of industries use this for cooling. So I've been told just the existence of being able to locate along this sort of wastewater line from here to Vicksburg is also a big draw. There's just a lot of things sort of in the mix there that I think are primed to make that an economic development corridor that really is ready to take off. So you couple that with you've got Continental here, which we're one of our wonderful partners. They've said at times, you hear at times that there may be some plans for expansion for them in the future. We'd love to help them get that off the ground and get that going. They've been tremendous, and we'd love to see their footprint grow here in Clinton. So just options like that, I think, if you can really sort of get Clinton positioned to economic developmentally move into the sort of the next generation, I would consider that really a success for this administration.